We were not built to lead from fear, pressure, autopilot thinking, or even other people's expectations. I am Lucas Sheridan. This is the Uncaged Leader. Practical tools, real conversations, and the freedom to lead like yourself. Let's get uncaged. As I was thinking about my journey, I remember a day very clearly. It was a middle school gym. My three of my kids were playing basketball, and that year at the Christian school that we were going to, they would play middle school girls, middle school boys, high school girls, and high school boys. I had two middle school girls and a high school boy, so we were literally there all afternoon. And in between a couple of games, somebody came up to me and said, Mr. Sheridan, how is your real estate business? And because I like self-deprecating humor almost to a fault, I said something to the effect of, as if I will ever sell a house, ha, 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 ha. About that moment, my eighth grade daughter walked up to me, still in her basketball uniform, and heard me make that statement and put her hand on my arm, looked up at me with her big brown eyes and said, "You are a good real estate agent, aren't you, Dad?" And I smiled and I said yes. And I finished the statement that in my head, and I wasn't 10 seconds ago. You see, in that moment, I had to make a decision. Was I going to continue to buy into the stories that I was telling myself, or was I going to make a different decision? Because you see, all the stories I was telling myself were completely true. As many of you leaders are experiencing right now, that the stories that we have in our head, the emotions, the biases, the preferences, the perspectives that we have, they're all really valid. They just may be very limiting at the same time. Have you ever had a moment like that where you believed in a version of yourself that was actually limiting yourself and you actually had good reason for this? You see, that is the cage. It's not visible. There's no chains. There's no physical bars. But here's the thing. I am discovering that many leaders, many achievers aren't failing because of strategy or skill level. They're failing because of a story, a narrative that is running in the background that they've never questioned. And truthfully, many of them aren't even aware that they're running based upon a story. They aren't aware that they're living their day in, day out life experiences based upon preferences that we have developed over time that has become autopilot thinking. And now without thinking, we're actually making decisions. You see, the cage is not external. The cage is internal. It is built quietly, brick by brick out of past experiences. We experience something and then we have a reaction to it. And then that reaction causes us to create a judgment. And that judgment becomes a story. And that story, without being challenged, becomes a reality. Here's what I would ask you to think about. Think of one belief that you hold on to yourself about a leader. You hold on to yourself as a leader. Just one. Now, where did you get that story? Maybe you say, gosh, I'm just not strong enough, or I'm not assertive enough. Or maybe you say, I'm an introvert and quiet people just can't lead. Or maybe it's that you just feel like you're a doormat. Or maybe it's that you feel like you're always being rejected or you lack confidence. Here's my question. That one belief, where did you get that story? Was it handed to you? Or are you intentionally thinking that way today? In the Uncaged Leader, the book, I use a model that I was coached to when I was running a real estate brokerage. And it's simply this, is at 12 o'clock, something happens and we have no control over that. At 2 o'clock, we have a reaction, and the reaction is really based upon our story up to that moment in time, but we have a reaction, and generally speaking, we can't really stop the initial reaction. At 4 o'clock, we start forming a judgment. I like this. I don't like this. This is good. This is bad. I enjoy this. This is energizing. This doesn't make sense. But we start to form an opinion, and at 6 o'clock, we make up a story. Once we make up a story, what is very natural for us to do is at 8 o'clock, then we start looking in the world for evidence to support our story being true, because our brain exists for one reason: to be right, to protect ourselves, to create efficiency. So we will literally look past thousands of pieces of evidence that don't support our story, and we'll find the one or two anecdotal things that support our story. And at 10 o'clock, then we create a reality. What I would encourage you to do is this. Start challenging the stories. Start challenging the assumptions. Start challenging the preferences. First, it begins with a huge awareness. I'm aware that I'm creating a story. I'm aware that I have these real feelings, but what's the story underneath these feelings? You see, I believe in leadership, as in life, all
feelings and all emotions need to be validated. All emotions and feelings don't necessarily need to be acted upon. So today I want to ask you to do this, and I want you to think about this. Number one, pick a recurring frustration in your leadership, something that keeps showing up. Because everywhere you go, there you go. So it may not be that this always happens to you. It may be that actually you bring about on some levels, you bring about that frustration. So number one, pick a recurring frustration in your leadership, something that keeps on showing up. Number two, ask yourself, what story am I telling about this? I've already spent this morning coaching and consulting different people in the real estate industry specifically, and there are people that show up that constantly underperform, that constantly don't do the activities, and then wonder why they don't get the results. So I have to ask myself this question: what story am I telling about this? And what I'd like to ask you to do is third, is write down one sentence. Don't judge it. Just name it. Name the story that you're telling yourself, and that's it. I'm not asking you to fix anything yet. I just want you to start running with your lights on. There was a great book that I wrote about how many times we go through life mindlessly. I want you to be mindful, not in the sense of meditation and all that element of teaching, but I want you to be mindful about what you're thinking. I want you to be mindful about the stories you're telling yourselves, because I believe in order to get freed from the cage, we have to first be aware of the cage. And the cage, many times, is the story that we're telling ourselves. I just think about that moment in that gym outside of Houston, Texas. My daughter wasn't asking a trick question. She was asking a very honest question, probably more honest than anybody had asked me at that moment. And I had to decide, was I going to keep performing the way that I had been performing, and I was going broke really quickly, or was I going to become a version of myself that actually would take care of that child? The next time on the Uncaged Leader, we're going to show you the very moment that everything can change. In that story model that I introduced you, it's not what you probably think, but it's what I've learned. It's what happens at 5 o'clock. So I hope you'll tune in and you'll enjoy that.